Hey y'all, so today we are going to be making a pocketed mask. So I'm going to show you how to create a 3-layer pocket mask using scraps or anything that you have at home. These are just scraps of fabric that I have. You can use, for the ties, we are not going to do elastic behind the ears because the elastic can put pressure, and we are finding that it's hard to get the elastic right now. So we are going to use either ribbon, or I'm going to show you how to make the ties in case you can't get ribbon. So we will cut the fabric and create almost a bias tape to use as the tie. We are going to head on over to the cutting table and I'll show you how to cut it. So for this part, we are going to make the pocket. This piece is going to be 9 inches by 11 inches. So I have squared this up. Let's see, actually now it's not squared up. There we go. All right, so I'm going to square this up on the side. I'm just using a rotary tool to do this. You can do it with scissors. I just find it easier to use a small rotary tool. Okay, so I'm going to count out 11 inches. All right. I am using a scrap piece. Ideally, you would have everything going the same direction, but because we're using scraps and these are emergency relief, I'm not going to worry about the direction that the pocket is going in. Okay, so this was 11 inches. Now I'm going to count out 9 inches. Let me double check. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to put my ruler down at the 9-inch mark. Right, and discard the scraps. This is our pocket piece. And it will be folded in half this way. So it is now 9 inches. Once it is folded, it is 9 inches by 5.5 inches. And you're going to want to press this so that you have a nice crisp line. Okay, now I am going to take, okay, so next for this step, I have taken 2 additional scraps and stacked them on top of each other. I'm not using this portion, so I'm not worried about this, and I'm not worried that they don't match up because it will be cut from the center. I am going to square this up. Okay, and we are going to count out 9 inches. All right, so I'm going to put this at my 9-inch mark. This cutting mat has been used for years, so the markings are all worn off. Okay, I'm gonna count up 6 inches. These 2 pieces should be 9 by 6. And I'm going to cut it there. Okay, so now you should have a 6x9, a second 6x9, and a 9x11 folded into 9 by 5.5. Okay, so now that we have our 3 pieces, we are going to take one of the 6x9s and lay it flat. You're going to then take your folded piece with the folded edge up, and you're going to lay it on top of the 6x9 fabric, which is face up. You're going to put right sides together and line up the bottom raw edge. That where you can see. You're going to line up the bottom raw edge. Then you are going to take your additional 6x9 piece face down so that right sides are facing, and place it on top. Line that up. You can use pins or you can use clips. These are the clips that I usually use. For this one, I'm going to use pins since that is what most people will have. I'm going to take my pins and go through all 3 layers. Actually, let me move to the center. Okay. I'm going to do this all the way around so that all 4 sides are held in place. Okay, now that I have that done, we are going to begin sewing. I'm going to start at the bottom. If you start at the top, you might run into this little piece. So we are going to start at the bottom in the middle. So I placed my pin in the middle, and we will begin right here with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We are going to, and remember to pull your pin back so that you do not sew through your pin. I'm going to back stitch and we will sew to the corners. I'm going to stop just before I get to the very bottom. Now, this is where you will use your ribbon I should have already measured this out. Let's see. Oh. Here, we'll use this one. Okay, so this is where your ribbon is going to come in. This is a grosgrain ribbon, and if you can't get ribbon or elastic, I will show you in a moment how to make ties. Okay, so I'm going to measure out 18 inches, and I'm going to need 4 of these. Oops. All right. It does not have to be exact, but it does have to be at least 18 inches. And like I said, you will need 4. All right, that is 3 and 4. Okay, so you have your 4 ties. You're going to take the corner of the first. We are going to open this up. Just lift the top layer. And we're going to stick this in there. You want, let me see if I can show you. All right. I'm going to actually push this in here because I don't want to sew it on the outside. I want it sewn on the inside. Let me take that pin out. So I am pushing the ribbon inside the little pocket between the first layer and the middle layer. Okay, now I want, for my ribbon, I don't want it sticking out this far, but this is to show you. You're gonna put it in the very corner and you want a tiny little bit to stick out beyond the edge. As you can see there, I believe you can see. Okay, now I am going to continue sewing and we are going to sew straight through that ribbon and then I'm going to back up. We are going to back stitch through that and then we're going to stitch back through it again. Okay, now remember you have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to lift, my needle is still down. I need to back up one more stitch. There we go. Now I am back to a 1/4 inch seam allowance on this side. Okay. We're going to sew straight through that. Okay, now I'm going to take another ribbon. I'm going to put this one inside as well. I'm just shoving this between the 2 layers, the top layer and the middle layer. Okay, I'm going to bring it at an angle so that it sticks out of the corner at an angle and has a little bit of overlap or overhang. Line those corners up again and stitch through. I'm stitching all the way to the end and back stitching it out. And then I'm going to do one more stitch. That should give me a 1/4 inch. Yeah. Okay, now, here's the tricky part. You have 3 layers. Your top layer, your middle pocket layer, and your bottom layer. Do not sew through the top of the pocket layer, the folded layer. So you have to make sure that you are at a 1/4 inch. If your needle is too far over, you will sew through the top of this and it won't open properly. Okay. So I'm going to line up my edges, make sure that pocket is far enough down. I'm going to remove those pins. All right, and we will sew straight across the top. Remember to keep a 1/4 inch. Okay, I'm going to remove this pin because I don't want to sew through it. going to take your third ribbon. Lift your top layer. It's going to sit on top of your second layer, just like the others. Push it inside. Okay, now I want it in that corner, directly in that corner, and sticking out just a tiny bit. All right, I am going to continue sewing all the way to the end, back stitch. That is just going to reinforce the ribbon. Okay, I'm going to lift and turn. Now, make sure that fabric lines up, and we're going to continue sewing. I'm going to remove that pin and continue sewing all the way down. Okay, I'm going to stop again. Our fourth and final ribbon, lifting, placing that inside. And again, I want it to come out at an angle right over that little corner, and I want it to extend beyond the edge. We're going to sew through and back stitch. And bring it forward to 1/4 inch and turn. Okay, now here is the next tricky part. If you sew all the way to your starting point, you will have no pocket to flip. So you want to make sure you leave yourself about 2 inches of open space. So I'm only going to stitch to about here. Yeah. Right, so I'll stitch to here and stop. Now I'm going to back stitch to make sure that it does not unravel. And I will forward stitch a few. Okay, I'm going to clip it. All right. I'm just going to shorten those a tiny bit. Okay. Now, you have an opening at the bottom, so we're going to flip. Just kind of push it all up inside that little hole, and then you can start pulling the fabric and the little ties. Okay, so now you can see the mask taking shape. Okay, but you're not done yet. So we are going to straighten this out, and you want to go and press it. Don't press your ties, you could melt them, unless you did fabric ties. So I'm going to go and press this to make sure that all of my seams are nice and crisp, and I'll return in just a moment. Okay, now you have your pressed mask. So we are going to gather the sides. It does not have to be perfectly even, but you do want to make sure that they are all facing the same direction. So I'm going to basically make a Z, if you can see that. We are going to do 3 pleats. I'm going to start up here. For this, I am going to use clips. It just makes it easier to hold. So now we're going to, you have the pleats. Now we're going to move to the other side. Oops. Let me show you what I just did there. I did them in the opposite direction, and we don't want that. We want them all to face the same direction. So on this one, all of the pleats are facing down. Now, the reason I'm using clips is because it does get hard to hold. And you have to be very careful when you start sewing through these pleats. They are thick, so go very slowly. You may even have to hand turn your machine. So I am going to start here, and drop my presser foot down. Machine, I would definitely use that one over another one. It is not required that you have a heavy duty machine because, as you've seen with this one, I can hand crank it. However, it definitely is easier. Go across the bottom of the mask. I have taken where the hole was from turning, I have folded that fabric in and pressed it, so when we go over it, it will seal that right up. I'm going to stop there and turn. I'm going to take this bottom clip and remove it. And we will sew up. Okay, so now I have gotten through all of those pleats, and we are going to sew the top. You don't want to sew the pocket together. So we are going to go all the way up. I'm going to turn, and I'm going to flip the pocket back. So you're just going to flip that back so that you're only sewing through this top portion. It is not going to be a 1/4 inch seam. You are going to be sewing very close to the edge. Okay, I'm going to going to take it, and then I'm going to back stitch. And forward stitch 2, just to lock it in. Oh, I don't know where my little scissors are, so we are going to clean it up with my big scissors. Okay, so here is your finished mask with ties for either side. Oops, where's the top? There it is. And a pocket to put the filter in. So you're all done. Okay, so now we have our completed mask. You're going to put it in the wash, dry it, put 1 in each individual sandwich bag. Once you have 10, put 10 bags in 1 gallon size bag. And that's it. Thank you. Good luck. If you have any questions, let me know.